What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Final Score Overtime. Ben Peck, Jake Eichstead, and Jake Meyer over there on the producer camera. Sadly, no Erin Reynolds today. She is out on assignment covering Odessa High School. But let's get right into it, Ben. Let's get right into breaking down some of these games from last week. Let's start with the game of the week, Fort Stockton going to Monahans. If I can start.
Well, I was going to say, yes. Fort Stockton is falling behind 13-0 at the start of that game. For
26 unanswered.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and I said that in my shot on Friday. It was really a tale of two halves. A team that only threw 11 passes had 3 interceptions in the first half. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. And Fort Stockton was a team who was, favored going into this game. They're 5-1 going into it. Monahans not, a much worse record.
Yeah, although like we discussed, Monahans, it was kind of probably a little bit of contrasting tales to the season as well. Fort Stockton, they had taken care of business, although some of the teams they played, a little smaller schools on the smaller end. Monahans kind of going the opposite direction. And so those records were probably closer to even than they might appear on the surface. But yeah, we were definitely in for a good game there.
No, definitely. And Monahans was very motivated to come out early, and you could tell pick 6, first quarter, really long touchdown. You could tell they were really fired up. Defense was playing very well. And like I said, this Fort Stockton attempted 11 passes in that game. You could tell where their philosophy was going.
And I was going to say, Dominic Aguilar, that's their sophomore quarterback for Fort Stockton. He's a very talented kid. He's young, though. He's 15 or 16, however old he is. And I really think here in the next couple years, he will be a really good quarterback for this Fort Stockton team. It's just when you're that young, it's tough to get a passing game going. You can't commit to having that young of a guy throwing 25, 30 passes a game. That just, it doesn't work. So I get where this philosophy came from. It's a tough day for him to start with 3 interceptions in the first half. But, I mean, he got the win. So I think that proves his toughness, and that'll be a lot for him going forward into his senior year.
To step on that, if I want to speak to his toughness, every read option he gave, he delivered the blow to the defender coming to get him. Something that stood out to me I absolutely loved. And he had a QB sneak touchdown, a couple of keepers, of course, going for yards, and he's always falling forward. So if you're talking about a tough kid, that is him.
I think, too, he had I think he did finish over 100 yards in that game. I want to say somewhere around 120 yards. In the win over Monaghan. So he definitely, even though he only threw the ball, I think he only threw the ball 4 of 10. Yeah, 4 of 10 for 50 yards, the 3 interceptions, but on the ground, 13 attempts for $127, and that included even the, quarterback sneak from 1 yard out. So
and
a pretty good clip.
That one other pass was the almost pick 6 that kept them in the game, remember?
Yes.
They got tackled on the 1 yard line right before halftime, and that huge goal line stand by Fort Stockton is what kept it a 1-score game, and then that was all the momentum they needed coming out of halftime.
I was going to say gave them a little bit of juice instead of down. Even if they were down 13-0, the fact that they got that stop, I think.
It was 23 minutes and 50 seconds of bad football and then 10 seconds of what they needed.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
That's all you need. One play changes the game.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about it, but this district is every game, aside from Greenwood maybe being probably the only team that goes into any game as somewhat of a favorite, I think every team, I don't know that there's a clear dividing line as to the clear-cut second play, a team that can't.
I really think it's Greenwood is alone at the top, but man, that second tier of teams, anyone can
second
win those
tier.
games. Yeah,
you're talking Fort Stockton, Pecos, Monahans, Snyder, which had a win over Fort Stockton, Sweetwater, Lamesa probably toward the back end of that, but that race right there, which is going to be your playoff race, I think, among those teams. And, again, it's still early enough that you probably can't rule out a Sweetwater, maybe a Lamesa if they catch fire. That district is just so tight.
Yeah. Another tight district.
There. And how many teams from this?
Or 2-6A?
4 make it.
4 make it. Okay.
4 out of 7.
Okay. The next game, let's look at a really close game here in the Basin, Permian and Tascosa.
Yes. So this is the game I was at for the first. Honestly, the first quarter. We were trying to look. It was 21-13 after the first quarter. We couldn't quite pull up all the box scores from the full archive, but that was the highest scoring first quarter between these two teams since at the earliest they could have matched that would have been 2005. And it probably, in all likelihood, goes back to the 90s, if ever, that they've combined. I mean, that first quarter was just back and forth, especially for two teams that play the style that they play with the veer offense, triple option. To have, 5 touchdowns in that first quarter, it was absolutely insane. That both teams were just moving it down the field. It was interesting. Tascosa started off with a touchdown draw, a very typical Tascosa drive, just wear you down and punch it in at the end. There were some chances that Permian had to get a stop. Permian comes back, responds in a similar fashion, a little more quick strike offense on that drive. And then I believe at that point, Permian held Tascosa to a 3-and-out. Tascosa then punts it back to Permian. And then from there, it was just back and forth like it had been. Permian goes on a nice touchdown drive. Tascosa answers the very next play from scrimmage, 75-yard touchdown, quarterback keeper with Joseph Plunk, coach's kid. Mm-hmm. And then Permian answers back with another. It was just bizarre. Easton Hernandez, though, quarterback for Permian, second week back from injury. He also played in the game with Odessa High. I think what he brings to the table as a runner has been a huge game change for Permian. I do think the team, like we discussed earlier in the year, is playing a lot better than they were. Just only if nothing else, but that experience that we were talking about. That Permian could be a team, probably would be a team that improved more than most over the course of the year because they had so many guys kind of inexperienced starting off. But not only that, they get Easton Hernandez back. The versatility he has as an athlete to be a running threat. I think Harper Terry, in Easton's place, he did a solid job throwing the ball, and I think he filled in admirably. But I think Easton, just as a sheer runner,
to that offense. And I really think this Permian team really needed this win. I mean, Permian started the season 0-3, and they've ripped off 4 straight wins. A lot of them in district play, and I think a lot of us rode off. We're like, oh, okay, like this is just going to be a bad Permian team this year. They're the second best team in the district right now, in my opinion, because Tascosa and Friendship, those were 2-3, and they just beat Tascosa. I think this Permian team looks really good. It's making for a really good matchup with Lee at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. You were talking earlier about the strength of schedule that Monahan's faced. I think they had that exact same philosophy. Let's go get battle tested and come lick our wounds, come ready district play. We'll be ready to face anybody.
Yeah. And, new coach for Monahan's too, kind of going through that adjustment as well.
Mm-hmm. Last game that we will recap is going to be Pecos and Sweetwater.
All right, this one's fun because it's insane. Pecos, they rushed for, hold on, let me see if I can pull it up here. 3 200-yard rushers in the game, and over the course of the game, they rushed for 665 yards on the ground, 61 passing yards, and 62 points in 62-49 win over Sweetwater. Ezekiel Saldana, he had 18 carries, 225. Armando Granado, 30 carries, 216, and a touchdown. And then Abel Velasquez, 13 carries, 203 yards, 4 touchdowns. Insane. We just had to give Pecos a shout out. Honestly, for Athlete of the Week, we were looking at this, but it was so hard to kind of narrow it down between any one of those guys and the offensive line. So kind of an honorable mention there, but insane.
Interesting thing, Pecos has not had a win streak or a losing streak of more than one game this year. They've won, lost, lost.
Okay, well.
So I just thought that was interesting when I was looking at
well,
that.
We'll see. Hopefully, if you're a Pecos fan, they can break that. They can break that streak here.
What I think is amazing is the fact that they ran the ball so many times, and usually running correlates to eating up a lot of clock. How did Sweetwater score 49 points?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sweetwater did move the ball a lot as well from what I saw. I wasn't able to see specifically kind of how they did it, but I think I would imagine. I mean, and you see Abel Velasquez, 13 carries for 203, 4 touchdowns. So I imagine even though they were running the ball, obviously milks up a lot of clock. Unless you're scoring immediately, then that kind of helps get you more possessions, I guess.
Well, that'll wrap it up for the recap section of our show. We're going to say sayonara to our Facebook Live viewers. If you want to catch the rest of the show, please go to yourbasin.com tomorrow when we get it published. Coming up, we will preview the games of next week. Don't go away.
When you got a big job, you need a reliable work truck. From flatbeds, roustabouts, and crane bodies, it's all here at Stanley Ford Andrews. Our fleet sales crew can get you in the right truck for the right job. No one has more in stock than Stanley Ford and Andrews.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Final Score Overtime. Time now to preview some of these games coming up on Friday. This next week, we'll start with Tascosa and Midland Lee.
Yes. Okay, so Midland Lee, last year, as we all remember, it was kind of a crazy situation as far as the top of those district standings. You had the three-way tie, everyone beating everyone. You had Permian beating Tascosa, Tascosa beating Midland Lee beating Permian. So with this game, Tascosa was able to beat Midland Lee last year, and I think similar to some other revenge match, grunge matches like Abilene High earlier on in the year, I think Midland Lee, I think that will be more than enough fuel for them to try to come into this game and show that this Midland Lee team is a step above where they were last year. And maybe not even a step above to where they were last year, but I get the sense that this group has more of a pride that this Midland Lee team is not going to it's not going to make the same mistakes that they did last year. You know what I mean? And so I think they're going to come into this. Tascosa, listen, like I don't want to say they're down from last year because they're still a very good team. And last year they made the state semifinals, the Region 1 champs. So you can't really like talk down to the Rebels, those Rebels too much, I should say here. So, you know, I think it'll be a physical game, though. I think Tascosa, the wild card that we talk about every week with these triple option, veer option teams, at every level. Well, I guess except for NFL. But you know, if they can get the lead and hold on to the ball and just shorten the game, anything can happen. So I think that's probably their best chance, Tascosa's, to get a win here. But I think Midland Lee, what's so nice about them, if you are the Rebels, if you're the Midland Lee Rebels, if you fall behind, you can just air it out to Fungi, go air raid, try to catch up quickly, or if you're ahead, you can milk it.
And that was exactly what I was going to say. Michael Serrano continues to have a great season. Last week, 332 through the air, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 157 passer rating, call him Aaron Rodgers, 9 carries, 82 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's just been a ton of players that have really showed up. The biggest one I was going to say was Romero. Last week, Fungi was covered up. He had 3 receptions, 34 yards. If I remember correctly, it was all in the first half, too. Really couldn't get him going. Romero stepped up, 9 receptions, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns. This Midland Lee team has weapons all over the field. But, you know, Tascosa is not a slouch either. I really think Joseph Plunk, their quarterback, he is a great runner. Last week, 23 carries, 255 on the ground and a touchdown. They're a good team. I'm excited to see this match.
I said it on Final Score last week. You gotta love a quarterback that comes in with the turf tape on both of the elbows. That's a guy not afraid to take some contact. Shamar Davis, by the way, the head of that rushing attack for Midland Lee, and he's had a great season as well to this point. I think he's kind of their X factor because he kind of flies so under the radar with Serrano and Fungi and all those receivers. Yeah. But yeah. And the defense, by the way, the defense for Midland Lee, led by Carl Taylor, they've been fantastic as well. So I think I would expect Midland Lee certainly to be up to the task in this one.
Would you expect this to be a high-scoring game, though, as well?
I would kind of put it similar to last year. I kind of put it middle of the road. I think, Midland Lee, I could see this being similar to their Smithson Valley game earlier in the year. So they won that game 45-21. I could see this being, maybe mid-high 30s and, on the lower end, low 20s, mid-20s.
I was going to say 55 total points-ish.
Yeah,
I
would say right around there.
I personally will take the over. Next game, we'll do OHS and Friendship.
Oh, okay. So speaking of Midland Lee, if you are a Midland Lee fan, you need to put on the red and white, go out, support the Broncos in this game, because this is a huge game for Midland Lee. If Midland Lee is going to be a 6A Division II team after Midland High lost to Friendship last week, in all likelihood, I mean, I guess chaos could happen, but in all likelihood, they are going to need Odessa High to beat Friendship and then Odessa High to go on and beat Midland High at the end of the year. That would put that could theoretically put Odessa High in the playoffs, Permian in the playoffs, Midland Lee, and Tascosa leave Friendship out of it. And so this is a huge game for Midland Lee in that sense as well.
And you say this because of the start that Friendship had against Midland
Well,
Lee,
and because it's the way they do it for Division I. For those that don't know, they do the 4 teams that make the playoffs. The 2 highest enrollments go to Division I. The 2 lowest enrollments go to Division II. And the only 2 teams, the only teams that are above Midland Lee in the district are Permian, Midland High, and Odessa High. So they would need 2 of those teams to make the playoffs to get bumped down.
Okay.
And so Midland High, after losing to Friendship, it's going to be tough for the Bulldogs. The clearest path, if you will, for Permian and another team to get in there would be Odessa High to beat Friendship. Now, the game last week, Friendship and Midland High was interesting because it was 3-0 kind of early on. Midland High seemed to, at least first series or so, from what I gathered following it, I don't want to say hold them at bay, but it was 33-0. That's it's a blowout, but it's not a bloodbath by any stretch. Odessa High, where are they exactly in relation to Midland High? We shall see. I think they held their own relatively. The Permian game. You were there. Like I felt like at times they certainly matched Permian. Here and there, take away some mistakes, and they're in that game. So it all comes down to Donovan Smith, though, stopping him. And if the Broncos can't do that, it's going to be tough sledding. But I don't know. I'm really interested to see this game because I think Odessa High, they played Midland Lee. I think that was sort of a mismatch for the Broncos. And the Permian game, they come up short, but I think for them they acquitted themselves well. Friendship, we saw them take care of business against Midland High, and then Midland Lee give them a scare. I still don't really have a great read on Friendship at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to give some stats about Odessa High so far this year. In the last 3 games, they're being outscored 119-51. That includes a win over Harlingen South.
Yeah.
And then they've only scored 7 points in district play so far this year. Not a good look for the Broncos. But number 3, who was their starting quarterback this last week?
I'm not sure who their starter was. I know Diego, I don't know.
Cobb's a receiver, correct?
Yeah, he's listed as a receiver, but he was taking snaps.
I think he runs some Wildcat.
Okay, yeah, because he looked really good.
I want to say it was Diego Cervantes was starting last week.
He made some really good plays, especially when he got rushed and he was under pressure. Just watching him be able to move in the pocket, I think that really adds a lot to that Odessa offense because their offensive line has been getting beat in a lot of games this year, and it'll be another tough matchup with Friendship. I think having that mobility at quarterback and being able to, play off of that, and when things break down, he gives you that shot to gain 8 yards or 12 yards and keep your drive alive. I like having him lined up back there. I think that's really good play calling for OHS.
Danny Cervantes, in my experience, has not been one to be shy about, making tweaks if things aren't working. Maybe the Wildcat, an extended Wildcat package is something that we could see, but he's not afraid to kind of, move the pieces around to generate some offense, especially in a game that, Odessa High, I don't know exactly the math, top of my head, but I'm not sure if they would be mathematically eliminated with a loss in this game, but this is essentially a must-win, even if it isn't. This is an absolute must-win for them if they're going to make the playoffs. So,
if they're going to win this game, it all comes down to stopping Donovan Smith.
Yes, and actually, 100%. I do think their defense has a chance of kind of, if they can come up with some sort of plan,
just contain him
to limit his rushing ability and then make him beat. If the guys up front can kind of hold their own enough,
let those linebackers play.
and then they can drop a little more into coverage, make Donovan Smith beat you with his arm instead of with his legs, because we know he can do that. Then, is that going to be a winning formula? We shall see. But I
they've
think
got weapons on the outside still too. It's a tough task.
Yeah.
But you got to trust your corners.
That's
and you
why
gotta
I
trust
would
your line.
imagine if I were I'm not the expert, but if I were to venture to guess, I would say your best bet, you talk about those playmakers they have, your best bet is to give help in coverage to help deal with those guys. And then, because I think you're so strong up front and with your linebacking core, hope that they can kind of keep things steady for the Broncos defense.
I'll say, building off what you said, any kind of Midland Lee fan might want to wear a little bit more than just the Broncos colors. They might need a Donovan Smith voodoo doll, some other kind of extraterrestrial or supernatural thing. I don't think it's going to be that close. That's me personally. Next game we're going to look at is Midland High and Permian.
Midland High, Permian. Permian is going to be on the road for this one. I would expect not too much of a road trip, but nothing compared to honestly what Midland High's had to go through, where they
Harlingen.
They go Harlingen, Tascosa on the road, but Permian. I think it'll be interesting. I guess the biggest question for me with that, after playing your arch rival or one of them with Odessa High, after getting up for that game against Tascosa, which meant a lot to those kids, to see they can't come into this game overlooking the Bulldogs. Bulldogs have been able to move the ball on the ground at times. They've traditionally had a fairly solid front seven defensively. So that if Permian comes in a little lackadaisical, I think that could that Bulldogs front seven rushing attack, that could present some problems. I think this will be kind of a test of their, I don't want to say character, but that's another aspect that they're going to have to show.
And that's what I think Midland High needs to do for the rest of this season. They need to focus on the future and say, hey, this year didn't go exactly how we want it to, but we have a lot of young talent. We have a lot left to play for. Let's go out there and play without fear, because who cares if we throw an interception or we miss a tackle and something bad happens? Go try to make those plays, because we're not going to win games unless we're going to try. I think this is real gut check for Midland High. Are you going to come out? Are you going to fight? You're going to really go for it this season? Because they're a proud program. They're a proud team. Go fight against Permian, and then at the end of this all, take a step back, see what you need to do to adjust, and go into next year and maybe get some young guys on the field as much as possible.
And I believe 5 straight it might be 6, but I believe it's 5 straight playoff appearances for the Bulldogs. So, and I was kind of talking down their chances a little earlier, but mathematically they're still, in terms of, they've only played 2 games. So to your point about a gut check, if they can, they're probably going to be playing with their hair on fire in this game, because if they can somehow beat Permian, and then you have Odessa High later, and you still got, they would have Tascosa. No, who would they have? They would have,
I don't have their schedule.
I don't know. I can't think of it. But they would have another game down the road as well. They're right there. Oh, Midland Lee, of course. Yeah. But Midland High. So this is kind of it for them too. That they have to come out with the win in this game. So I think it'll be a competitive game. With some good energy on both sides. Permian trying to show that we're not just getting up for these big games. In their mind, we come up with a consistent effort. And Midland High is saying, this is it if we're going to extend that playoff streak. So we shall see. You
mentioned Midland High's run game. I think Permian's strength on the defensive side of the ball, at least, is that defensive line. Who do you like in that matchup?
I would say, I would probably give the slight edge to Permian, just because Midland High, a lot of their weapons are kind of some younger guys. Midland High, though, they have talked all week long or all year long about how if there's one area they feel confident in, it's that offensive line. So, we'll see. Permian, they do have some inexperienced guys in their front seven as well, but I think they've been thrust into so much playing time that they've kind of, even if they are maybe sophomores and juniors there, they've been they've been kind of building up that experience.
You're talking Permian, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you play DeSoto and South Lake Carroll
Yeah,
to start the
that'll
season.
get you some
You're going to
experience.
grow up quick.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I guess like just by the way the season's played out, you'd have to give Permian the slight advantage. But Midland High, I think they probably feel confident in their ability to at least present some issues.
Sure. Next game we'll look at is Andrews and Big Spring.
Andrews, Big Spring, this is going to be tough for the Steers. Andrews has been just balling out.
Yep.
Jake, I know you got some.
I only put this game on the rundown just because I wanted to do a Brett Leach and Marquise Lawrence stat check real quick because I love watching a quarterback in high school that can throw, especially as many times a game as Brett Leach does.
Oh, yeah.
That takes a lot of talent as a young guy to be able to do that. So far this year, I'm comparing Brett Leach and Joe Burrow. Brett Leach, 63% completion percentage, 2,200 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Compare that to Joe Burrow. Okay, Burrow's throwing for 80%, but he's got 2,400, 29 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Pretty cool.
Comparable.
You know? Comparable. And then Marquise Lawrence, he's outpacing C.D. Lamb. Marquise Lawrence, 46 receptions, 744, 13 touchdowns compared to 31, 680, and 10. But I really like this Andrews offense. I really like a team that can throw the ball, and the fact that the quarterback's last name's Leach, that kind of that adds to it. So I like that too. But they've been really fun to watch this year, and I've really enjoyed that. And I mean, they've got other receivers all over the field. Rodney Lopez, he's nearing the 500 mark here for receiving yards. He's got 8 touchdowns. Add Jaheim Nelson and Jacob Lawrence on that team, and you've got weapons all over the field for Brett Leach to throw to. That's why I wanted to talk about this game.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about it?
I think that offense is going to be tough for any team, not just Big Spring. I think for any team to slow that down is going to be tough. By the way, though, shout out Big Spring one time. We'll get to the NFL portion a little later. But
Tannehill.
Jeremiah Cooley, freshman on UTBB from Big Spring last year, 4 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown against Chadron State.
Hey,
So shout out
Nebraska,
Jeremiah Cooley,
State.
Big Spring one time.
Will we see kind of performances like that from their team this year, though?
We shall see. But honestly, Big Spring, they won a playoff game last year against one of those El Paso teams. I would not rule that out of the cards this year once again.
Next game will be McCamey taking on Van Horn.
Yeah, I think they're going to come out swinging in this game. The season hasn't gone exactly how the Badgers would have liked. They have a young team, but started district play. I think McCamey's going to come out with a lot of energy in this, and Van Horn a little improved to where they usually are. But I like the Badgers' chances in this one at home.
I just wanted to shout out Van Horn, Aaron Urias. I watched some highlights of him. Man, that kid is fast. If they can get him on the outside, he had a couple rushing touchdowns from the quarterback position as a Wildcat guy last week or 2 weeks ago against Jow. And then they had a swing pass to him that was beautiful. They lined it up. They just got him outside, dropped it off to him, and he took off 74 yards. And it just burners. That kid can run, and if they can get him the ball, I like the Eagles against McCamey. So.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be a competitive game.
Only note I have in McCamey, a team of a lot of young guys. Hopefully they can, they've gained some experience over the year, more so to the tune of most teams. Last game we will look at is Big Two's Game of the Week. Coming up this week, we're going to stay in that same district we were in last weekend. In fact, one of the same teams.
Yes.
Fort Stockton taking on Greenwood.
And this game is going to be at home for Fort Stockton, unlike last week where they were on the road. This was... I'll see how this game went last year. If I recall, this was a pretty interesting game last year. But Greenwood, they're rolling. No bye weeks for them at this point. I don't know how much you could say about the challenges that they present defensively as well as offensively. We've talked about the offense. Throughout the whole year.
Weston, Trey Cross, Ryan Snodgrass, they're all there.
I mean, they're all there, and I think it's Austin Greshel, big tight end, making some plays as well.
He set the school record in terms of touchdowns in one game.
Really?
And Fort Stockton though, another team that if they can run the ball, they can maybe control the clock a little bit, cut down on some mistakes.
And that is their best defense in this game. Fort Stockton needs to control the ball. They need to dominate time of possession because Greenwood's going to score. You know they're going to score. Fort Stockton needs to be able to run the ball with Aguilar, get it to their backs, get 4 yards a pop, slow drives, 7-minute drives down the field, just completely take away this game from Greenwood. I mean, and Greenwood's defense, they're not slacks.
Yes.
They have been giving up 11 points a game. Greenwood won this last year. I mean, Fort Stockton needs Evian Castro, Isaiah Lugin, AJ Garcia, Erin Villarreal. They all had multiple tackles for loss last week in that game. They need to step up big again. They need to at least limit this big playability for the Greenwood offense. Give their offense the ball in good field position. Let their offense just chug it down. Don't make Aguilar throw the ball, try to fight back from a hole. They can't get punched in the mouth early if they want this to be a competitive game. They
And last
need
year,
to get up early.
it was 28-6 last year at Greenwood. So this is, going to be at Fort Stockton. But we should point out, too, as far as road trips go for district games, this is like a pretty decent-sized road trip if you're Greenwood. So, an earlier start time, the 7 o'clock start time, as is the custom in this district. Fort Stockton at home. Fort Stockton, feeling pretty good, I think, after going to Monahans and not only winning, but winning the way they did,
Yes.
building on that second half. We saw their defense can stand up at times if they need to. So I think this has the potential. It probably, I think we would all agree, the lower scoring this game ends up being is probably
more
going
it
to
leans.
play
Yeah. Sure.
into Fort Stockton's favor.
Yeah, if this game gets over 45 points
Yeah.
total, it's probably going Greenwood's way. But if Fort Stockton can control clock, that's all they got to do. I mean,
Yeah.
Brody,
if it's a race to 30.
forced turnovers, you've got to account for all these weapons they have. I mean, I would put Weston Wilbur in as many passing situations as possible. Yes, he's a really good quarterback. Yes, he has weapons on the outside. But when you're throwing the ball that many times a game, that gives that opportunity for, sack fumbles or interceptions. And all Fort Stockton needs to do is get good field position just a handful of times. And they can roll for this game.
Yeah, that first half, the way Fort Stockton played last week, they will not win if they go to Greenwood and play like they did that first half. Way too many turnovers. Well, excuse me, what I meant last week. Going to Greenwood, if Fort Stockton shows up the way they did last week in Monahans for that first 24 minutes, they will not win this game.
It won't be 13 points. It'll be 40 points.
Yeah.
If they throw in 3 interceptions.
And you probably ain't getting a goal line stand on the 1 yard line with Snodgrass.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yep. Okay, that'll wrap it up for high school. We will go from Friday nights to Saturdays. College football preview coming up.
$117. $57.
55. 37.
What do all these people have in common? It's the number of miles they were willing to travel to get the right vehicle at the best price. And of course, we all have a number, but how far would you drive for a great deal? It may be shorter than you think. Come visit us at Stanley Ford Andrews.
So, what's your number?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Final Score Overtime time. Now to talk about some college football
Let's do
games
it.
coming up this week. First one we'll look at my
Thursday night game.
A Thursday night game. Let me let everybody know that.
Yeah.
My 16th ranked in the nation, SMU Mustangs.
Undefeated.
Not
Group-
Undefeated.
Not
the AAC.
They would be the group of 5 team if the season ended
It would.
today.
They
now.
are the highest ranked G5 team. Taking on Houston. I will start because I'm sure I'm the
Well, I
one
was
who
gonna
needs to
say,
go
Yeah,
first.
you
Let's
take
hear
that
it.
one.
This is the first time, and God forbid that anything crazy happens, that I'm not nervous for the game. We talked about the Tulsa game. We talked about this. Ever since
Temple.
the TCU game, and Temple especially.
Yeah.
I know you were a little more worried than I
all
was.
on Temple
Yeah.
last
You
week,
guys took
yeah.
the 7.5 spread. I was like, I don't know. But I was still a little bit more worried than I am, especially now going forward. I mean, they've proven every kind of question mark that I would have had in terms of not just like, I've always questioned the ability to finish games. And that's part of the reason there's a conversation we have coming up for Coach of the Year that I want to give so much love to Sonny Dykes is turning this team around just from, I always say show ponies to workhorses. They finish games. They don't turn it over. I mean, Shane Buechele He does have 6 interceptions on the season, but 18 touchdowns and 2,200 passing yards. The rushing attack is crazy as well. Xavier Jones has 12 touchdowns on almost 1,000 yards on the ground. And there's kind of a 3-headed monster in the backfield with Kamon Freeman as well. I mean, this team is just, it's impressing me on so many levels.
Yeah.
By the way, Dallas uniforms Thursday night after the tornado. Good job, SMU.
Those
Good job,
Dallas
SMU.
uniform, the ones with the
They're beautiful.
script
Yes.
out, those
And the helmets are cool too. I know you're a helmet guy.
Yeah, I'm a big helmet guy.
I
so
do
yeah.
have to call out Houston. Okay, Houston, obviously they had the whole, the decision.
The decision.
Derek King.
Derek King.
Who they had the receiver too? I don't even know. But they had those guys. Then they came out. They beat North Texas on the road after the week that was.
Yes.
And I remember there was a lot of talk like, oh, look at this. Maybe not so bad after all. Also, probably North Texas not as good as everyone hoped.
What happened to them? They were supposed to be good this year.
Yeah, I don't
Weren't they
know.
supposed to be good
No,
this year?
they were. Mason's Fine's back. But
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I don't know. No, that's
was
been
disappointing.
that's been a big disappointment for if you're a CUSA fan. But Houston, since that game, they lost to Cincinnati at home. Cincinnati.
They're not a bad football team.
Cincinnati, good team. They beat UConn by 7 points on the road. UConn is
If you would've told me
one
that,
of, if not the
Yeah.
worst team in
If you would have
Division
told me
I
that would be the
FBS.
score at the beginning of the year, I would have told you go get checked out. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so I think
I-
Houston, as much love as people gave them after the North Texas game for showing up and rolling, not a good look.
No, UConn, man. I think
UConn's
Permian
terrible.
could line up and score 20 on him. I mean, oh,
Yeah, no, I know.
that is not fun football to watch.
No, UConn, honestly, they're like on a trajectory to go FCS, mostly for finances. But, I think Houston, they're in a world of trouble, especially with SMU come 10. I
Let's
think
talk
they'll
about
be
some
fine.
real conferences.
Huskies athletics all the way down right now.
Yeah.
How about so let's take it to the SEC, Mississippi State and A&M.
And Mississippi State, they kind of somewhat held their own against LSU.
okay.
Yeah,
That's the thing I say about both of these teams right now. Yeah, they're okay. Like
Yeah.
A&M, man, they had a rocky schedule to start the year. They got that win against Ole Miss. I think they covered. Yeah, they did. 5.5. They covered that game. They look good.
Yeah.
This is like one of the last opportunities A&M has to really win this year. I really think so. I think A&M comes out hot. They're at home. It's Kyle Field. This is an unranked team coming into Kyle Field. A&M.
I know. I think it's interesting. I think the bellwether is to whether. I think these next 3 games, A&M is going to have to win out for it to be considered even a discussion of a successful season. If you think about the fact that they lost to A&M, had that game against Arkansas, but they got the win. Lost to Auburn, lost to Clemson. All these big wins, we talked about it, all these big wins they were hoping for, aside from LSU, at Georgia at the end of the year, those are really their last 2 chances. Otherwise, you got to take care of business at home against Mississippi State, UTSA, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
And South Carolina. South Carolina, I think that could be a tough game. Mississippi State, I would probably say is the better Mississippi team, although you can't underscore, especially in college football, especially Kyle Field, that home field advantage. So in some sense, I think the Aggies should be favored in this game. On the other sense, I think Mississippi State, like I said, is probably a little better than Ole Miss, and they only won by a touchdown against the Rebels. So we'll see. It should be a good game, though.
Sure. Same state, different conference. Go to the Big 12 now. Number 15, Texas at TCU.
Ooh, how about Texas? Check your pulse.
I had Kansas on the money line as a joke bet this weekend.
Oh my goodness!
Man,
Check your pulse.
that was exciting.
If you're the Longhorns, listen. I thought the Longhorns last week against Kansas. I didn't think Kansas would be able to stop them, which was true. I just didn't realize they'd have as much trouble stopping Kansas, and I know they're banged up especially in the secondary.
Yeah.
Texas is. TCU. I think TCU. I kind of look at this game very similarly, probably a little bit tougher challenges to Kansas. I think, generally speaking, they won't have any trouble with this game, although injuries and who knows. I'm worried about that defense.
Texas really overlooked KU last week, and I mean that's really what that was. But I mean, give KU credit. The moment I knew KU lost that game is when the quarterback was throwing the horns down on the sideline. Did you see that?
I
was
didn't
like,
see
yep,
that.
that's the game. Texas is going to drive. Sam Ellinger.
Ben, can I get you to say that Kansas no longer has miles to go?
I was gonna say they almost.
If they won, no, they don't.
They actually passed the exit.
Exactly.
They have to go back.
Yeah, they got to find a U-turn.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But this is a TCU team also that has some pretty down. It's a down year for them. They have some bad losses, including one to my SMU Mustangs that we've never beaten them.
It's looking better and better though. I mean, as SMU keeps winning.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
But this is, Texas also down right now, like we just said.
Texas only favored by a point in this game.
What?
This is a good chance for TCU at home to make a big statement.
Yep.
And salvage the
I
season.
think I'd give Texas a little more of the edge than a point. I'd maybe say like a touchdown.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
By the way, TCU's quarterback can run as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Kansas and Texas Tech at Kansas this weekend. What are you thinking? I mean, those Texas schools having trouble with
First of all, I have
Kansas
to
this year.
update my Heisman power rankings. Puka Williams number 1, Carter Stanley number 2.
Okay.
That was unreal, those guys. But honestly, I think that offense and those guys could give Tech a lot of problems this week. So, Tech, by the way, Tech coming off the loss at home last week to Iowa State. And with that, there goes the Chris Beard block party on Broadway for everybody. But losing their first home game of the year. But, this is actually going to be a night game in Lawrence. I'll be interested to see how that dynamic is because, so much of what kind of the what people like to give Kansas a hard time about at Lawrence at 11 a.m. is it's such a dead atmosphere that kind of makes it
lulls you to
hard
sleep.
to play. So I'll be interested to see, with maybe a little more excitement with the night game, if it's almost in a weird way kind of helpful to get Tech up for this game. But I think this could present some troubles for Texas Tech from a defensive standpoint. I still think offensively, Kansas still had a lot to show in that game against Texas. I would give Tech the edge, although I would not be stunned by any stretch. Tech only a 3.5-point favorite from what I'm seeing. That sounds about right. I would give Tech the edge.
I'm saying 50-48 again.
Yeah.
Next game we'll look at, we'll go to the Big Ten now. Wisconsin. We can talk a little bit about them, and they will be taking on Ohio State.
Some real football, finally.
Wisconsin falling to the greatest college football coach of all time, Lovie Smith.
I saw you tweet
Shout
that.
out to Lovie Smith. I don't know why I like Lovie Smith so much. You just can't not like the dude.
Yeah. Even, listen, Illinois used to be up there with the UConns of the world as one of the worst, if not the worst, FBS, especially Power 5. I think, no doubt that, what would you say? Rutgers, true, Rutgers. There's always Rutgers.
Yeah.
But one of the worst, probably bottom 5 Power 5 conference teams. But yeah, no, Lovie Smith, shout out to the GOAT one time, as a Bears fan, of course.
Yes.
Ohio State, I'll be interested. Jake, you're our Big Ten correspondent. Ohio State, I do agree, one of the most talented, if not the most talented team in the country, certainly in the conversation. I think they certainly have the edge from a talent standpoint over Wisconsin. Does Wisconsin kind of get up after losing to Illinois, get up for this game even more to show that they can hang with them? I know that only takes you so far, though.
I think the first half will be very, very competitive. Ohio State is just so much better than Wisconsin, and we finally saw that this last week. I was saying there's Penn State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin in the Big Ten that are like real contenders. And after last week, you kind of see those weaknesses in Wisconsin, and you're like, okay, yep, this should be Ohio State, Penn State. Like that's who's playing for the Big Ten title. Like,
and
really,
Wisconsin weirdly kind of like, I know he had a fumble or two, but they kind of got away from Jonathan Taylor a little bit. So
it was a weird game.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. That's kind of a weird situation.
They were up 9 with 6 minutes left. I've never seen a Wisconsin meltdown quite like that. Besides when Nebraska came back from like 18 down and we beat them. Shout out one time. But have to throw that in. But I don't know. It's a little spooky for Wisconsin.
Jonathan Taylor, was he part of that 2006 recruiting class for Wisconsin? I feel like that kid has been there for a decade.
Oh, he's been there for well, they just have had elite running backs for so long.
They all kind of blend together.
Melvin Gordon.
Monte Ball.
That was literally to say that's how I felt with Monte Ball.
Yeah. Can't do anything about it.
Maybe the biggest matchup of the week, though, not in the Big Ten. It's SEC. Auburn at LSU.
Yeah.
I like the Tigers.
Go Tag.
Hey.
I wore the LSU shirt. I wore the LSU shirt today.
Yeah.
Flip that camera to me, Jared. Oh.
There we go.
Oh yeah, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Any Tiger fans in the basin?
I think LSU. I'd be interested to see what the spread is for this game because I have a sense that there's probably going to be, they're both top 10 teams and they probably are, but I think LSU is 11.5 point.
Yeah, I was going to say LSU should have.
That sounds about
very
right. It's one of those that you look at the rankings 9 and 2 and you think, oh, this should be like a really good game, but I think honestly it could get ugly. If you're an Auburn fan. Yeah, no,
especially in Death Valley.
Oh, Death Valley at night, LSU, that offense has been rolling. Joe Burrow completing 80% of his passes.
Burrow is insane. If we'll get to some more talk about number 1 picks and stuff in a little bit. Let's wrap up with this last game though.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, number 8, taking on number 19 Michigan.
So I don't really believe in either of these teams, to be honest. As far as elite contenders,
I believe in Notre Dame, and I
a little
hate
bit
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I hate Notre Dame, and I think what they proved against Georgia really sets them up for this year. And people are saying, well, Georgia lost to South Carolina. Well, South Carolina is not a bad squad, and that Will Muschamp coach team, he knows Kirby Smart, he knows that offense. He was able to set a good scheme on defense. I still think Georgia's a top 5 team in the country. And I think Notre Dame's probably a top 10 team in the country because they were able to play with them between the hedges. I don't know. I like Notre Dame heavy in this game.
This is what I get worried about Notre Dame with. I had the hunch, but I just looked up the scores to back it up. They beat USC without USC's, of course, starting quarterback.
Even that was a pretty close game.
By 3. Virginia's a better team than people give them credit for, but they hung with them for like 3 quarters before they kind of pulled away there at the end. They lose at Georgia. They beat Louisville on the road. Louisville much improved by a couple touchdowns. I believe in the talent of Notre Dame probably more than Michigan, but they just haven't put it all together quite to. But also, I mean, you want to talk about a team that hasn't put it together. Michigan. So that's why I don't really believe in either of these teams. I agree with you. I probably would believe in Notre Dame slightly more, but I don't know.
I mean, but if Notre Dame can get through this game, the rest of their schedule is kind of a cakewalk. They could be 11-1 easy, and if the right teams lose up at the top, Notre Dame might sneak back into the playoff this year.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a possibility. Only 1 loss, so.
And the loss is to Georgia as well.
Yeah.
Even though they have a bad loss now, that's still a very good football team.
Yeah.
If there's chaos, they could sneak in there.
Mm-hmm. Time now to talk about who we have is our Coach of the Year. I think I'll start with Ben on this one.
Okay, so Coach of the Year, honestly, at this point, I don't have a runaway guy who,
there's a few guys you can argue for.
You could talk about the
100%.
Met rules. Yeah, there's certainly guys that you can make the argument for. I think in that sense, I think it's kind of a crowded field. But I'm going to throw out one that I don't think he'll finish as the Coach of the Year, but if they can keep up, Dan Mullen at Florida.
Ooh, yeah.
With the quarterback chaos that they've had, and he still has his team with 1 loss getting ready to play Georgia in position if they can take care of business to get them to the SEC championship game, potentially with 1 loss, with all that they've had to deal with. And, maybe, if they win that, depending on how the SEC shakes out, maybe possibly sneak into the playoff. I think Florida, you got to give them some love there in that sense.
I'm staying in the
That's
SEC with mine. Edo, I think everybody kind of wrote off. Go Tigers!
Yeah, I was going to say, you didn't say it right.
The SEC kind of wrote off LSU this year. It felt like they got that number 6 ranking at the beginning of the year, that preseason number 6. Everybody was like, I guess they're the 6th best team in the country.
I feel like, too, there was talk like their offense could be better.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah, and now I think Edo's really put it together for this team. And, I mean, I saw something since like 2015, he's like 8-1 against top 5 teams. He has been lights out playing top opponents, and I think that's really the measure of a coach, especially in a league like the SEC. If you can win games against top 10 opponents, you're going to have a good shot to make it to the SEC title game, and if you make it to the SEC title game, you don't even have to win it half the time. You can get into the playoff. So I don't know. I like Edo a lot this year. That's why I'm wearing the LSU stuff today.
Yeah. You talk about winning big games, a coach who can get players fired up for big games. That's exactly what LSU needs, and that's what he does. So
yeah. I think we know where you're going, Jake.
You gave Matt Rule some love early in your time.
Yeah,
I'm telling you that he's not even the best coach in Texas. Sonny Dykes of SMU is the coach of the year, guys. I'm telling you, one SP metric I will give you. It has 5 factors of efficiency, explosiveness, field position, finishing drives, and sack rates / turnovers. They have had the biggest leaps from the year before. They are now 29th in the country overall in that metric, being 93rd of all Division I teams the year before.
Okay.
Talk about one thing that we talk about this SMU team is the transfers that they've had.
Yep.
And there's so much responsibility of a coach in creating team chemistry, getting everybody to operate together. And I think that's his biggest selling point right now is taking all of these guys from all over the place, guys who don't know each other, getting them to come together in the summer and fall and produce a undefeated winning product on the field.
Yeah.
I have to pick him as my coach of the year so far.
So certainly, probably to this point, probably would win it if the season ended today. So yeah.
But it doesn't, sadly. Would SMU beat Texas in a bowl game?
And that was the question posed to us.
I
think
we'll have to get back to you on that.
A&M would be.
SMU scores 45.
I think SMU A&M would be a very good game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How interesting would that be if Shane Buechele got to play Texas in a bowl
That
game?
would be fun. Oh, especially in the Cotton Bowl. Let's
Sugar
go.
Bowl, something.
Let's go.
Exactly.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
I mean,
let's do it.
storylines do sell. That would be the coolest thing I would see. And, of course, I think we all know who Erin Reynolds would pick. Barriota of Mizzou. He's a homer,
Yeah,
just like I am.
even after last
and
week.
he's had a great year as well, so you can make the argument for him. I will not do it on her behalf. Coming up, NFL football and who we would all have if we had the opportunity to pick number 1 this year. Don't go away.
When you got a big job, you need a reliable work truck. From flatbeds, roustabouts, and crane bodies, it's all here at Stanley Ford Andrews. Our fleet sales crew can get you in the right truck for the right job. No one has more in stock than Stanley Ford and Andrews.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Final score overtime, our last block of the show. Time to talk some NFL football. From these games coming up next week, we have Oakland traveling down to NRG Stadium facing the Houston Texans.
Yeah, Houston, little upset last week against the Colts there.
I mean, is it really an upset, though? Because this
I
Colts
was
team,
gonna say
we're talking
a
coach of the
mini
year.
upset.
Talking coach of the year, Frank Reich, other than maybe Sean Payton. Of course, Sean Payton's done a magnificent job, and they just took advantage of their team that's going down. But Frank Reich has, I mean, how many teams would lose their Hall of Fame trajectory quarterback, number 1 pick, Andrew Luck, and then be as successful as they are right now?
Yeah.
And in the way that it happened, that totally matters as well.
Yeah.
This Houston team really did prove something this last week, and I really think it kind of silenced a lot of people because, Houston, they break your heart. They, win some games, and then the next game they shoot themselves in the foot 10 times and they lose.
That was a very Houstonian
and
performance.
I think Oakland is a very good test for that, just because Oakland's very, very okay. You know what I mean?
Oakland beat the Colts in Indianapolis this year.
Yeah. And I mean, then they go and get swamped by the Packers. We're going to talk about here in a minute. But I just, I don't know. I like Houston in this game, especially at home. I like their defense. Deshaun Watson.
They really.
I was going to go straight to Deshaun Watson.
They really have been I know that Texans typically are kind of, especially Bill O'Brien, kind of up and down, like you said. But at New Orleans, a loss. Okay. You beat Jags barely. You beat the Chargers in L.A., okay. Then you lose at home to Kyle Allen and maybe his first start, I think, at that point. And then, you beat Patrick Mahomes on the road, but then you lose to the Colts. This could be a game that I think this will probably fit the Jags style. A close win that disappoints some people, but they get the job done.
Sure. So we're going to have to skip over Dallas. They have a bye this week, and I actually joked, of course, on Twitter, if they want to still stay motivated, they got to tell the coach of the bye week that that bye week guarantees a win. Philadelphia.
Hey, shout out for Dallas, Brett Maher, Nebraska kicker. He
makes the long ones. He makes the long ones.
Hey,
I know.
Nebraska.
That's a corn-fed leg.
Kicker. He's from Omaha, I believe. Yeah.
So we'll go to Kansas City. They're taking on Green Bay. Kansas City not looking as hot. Green Bay didn't start that hot, and they are all the way up right now. What do we think about this game?
Green Bay was scary good against the Raiders.
Yeah.
No Mahomes though, right?
Yes.
So I don't know. Honestly, I'll be interested to see this game. I would give the Packers the edge, but I would be interested to see just how good this Kansas City team is minus Patrick Mahomes. Like, how good are the pieces around him? And I think obviously they're still a pretty good team, but to what degree? And shout out to Matt Moore, my former roommate, not the quarterback, but we like to pretend that he's getting the start this week.
I was about to be
shout out to my guy.
I've never heard this.
Yeah. He's also a pitcher in MLB. It's crazy.
I'm going to have to pick Green Bay in this game.
Yeah. Also, real quick, going back to last week, we alluded to it earlier. Got to give a shout out to the former Big Spring Steer, Ryan Tannehill, getting the start for the Titans, and now getting the win. And he played fine in his part. Did y'all see the end of that game, Titans Chargers?
I did not.
They had the Chargers had the ball, first and goal from the 1, and then they actually got down, and they reviewed it. They had it as a touchdown, then they said it didn't get in, and then that was a 10-second runoff. So they burned a timeout. Tennessee did to save it, and then they either went down 1 or 2 more times, and they stuffed them at the goal line. And Melvin Gordon fumbled it into the end zone when they literally were at the 1-inch line. Yeah. And Tannehill holding on for the win in his first start at Tennessee. So shout out.
The Chargers found another Chargers way to lose a football game.
There was a lot of conversation about that on Twitter.
Yeah. Let's talk about number 1 pick coming up this year in April. Who do you guys think should be taken with that number 1 pick?
I'm Joe Burrow all the way.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Burrow all the way. So
if you need to take a quarterback, Joe Burrow, I would take Joe Burrow, a slight edge over Tua. If I just had to go, I think quarterbacks sometimes get, I don't want to say overvalued because obviously they're super important, but I think sometimes with the draft, people make it more complicated about, I think they overanalyze how much they need a quarterback, and you need to get the best player available. If that's the conversation, I'm looking at my guy, Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy.
If you're a team that doesn't need a quarterback, that's probably.
By the way, he had the chase down on the interception this past Saturday, right? Was that him?
Or
was that the other receiver whose name escapes me at this moment?
I'm not sure.
They have so many good receivers.
Yeah. No, but they. I can't remember who Alabama was playing, but the other team had an interception,
Tennessee.
and he comes out of the frame to chase him down from he's got
Ben Watson-esque.
Like a 20. Yes, the Ben Watson one. If I had a number 1 pick right now, I think I'm going to be safe and go with Tua. A lot of these teams who will have a chance at the number 1 pick, Cincinnati, Miami, even the Redskins, have been missing on draft picks, and I think Tua is the safest one right now.
If I'm the Redskins, I'm taking Jeudy.
Hey, we got a Bears fan over. Or we got two Bears fans.
Yeah.
Mitch, number 2. Okay, yeah.
Well,
I think that's the same thing that happens with Tua.
Well, no, to that point, that's why I think sometimes, if there's a quarterback who warrants the top spot, like a Burrow, like a Tua, go ahead and take him. But if there's a Mitchell Trubisky, if there's a Baker Mayfield, and they're not quite that level, don't get too cute. Best available player, Jerry Jeudy.
I don't think even on draft night, you couldn't tell me, and obviously hindsight's 2020, that there was any reason that Deshaun Watson should not have been taken over Mitchell Trubisky. Experience,
there's no reason.
winning,
Honestly, there's no reason Patrick Mahomes should have been taken.
We traded. I mean,
Why?
I would love to know what Pace saw. I'd love to know.
I don't know.
And that's why, I think that's why we're trading our first-round draft picks for guys like Khalil Mack. He's done well in that 4 to 7 range.
Yeah.
The first-round picks have been whiffs.
Yeah.
Straight whiffs.
Tough.
Well, that'll wrap it up this week for Final Score Overtime. You can catch the Final Score, of course, on Friday.
Yep.
10:30 p.m. Be there.
Game of the week, Greenwood at Fort Stockton.
I'm really excited for this one. I teased it even last Friday. I said it was going to be a big game. I'm really happy we made this our game of the week.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Should be a good one.
For Jake Eichstead, Ben Peck, Jake Meyer, signing off one more time. We will see you guys next week.